The new D&I, how did COVID change D&I? Why will we never return to the old times and what does it mean for companies? Good morning to you all. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, hello.
Good morning. We have Monika Bentkowska joining us, as well as Philippe de Brouwer, Monika Jankowska-Rangelov. I suppose we should start with the most basic of questions in a debate like that. Has D&I already changed as a result of the pandemic in a tangible, relatable manner? Any one of you would like to start to answer this question?
I can start.
I think
D&I has increased in its value and strength. Before pandemic situation, we were talking about different diversity dimensions. We were looking at some groups of features of people. Currently, we need to take into account that individuals need to be looked at individual needs, preferences, abilities. We no longer can talk only purely about representation of the underrepresented groups like minorities, race minorities, or age different groups. But we really need to look at D&I as something that is really truly being tested under pandemic situation.
I think all of us will agree with that one, but Monika, don't you think it might just be a little too early to be too optimistic, and it's possibly still on the wishful thinking side, us thinking that the pandemic has changed the D&I thinking for the better? Anyone else would like to comment on that?
Well, that depends what you mean by D&I, but I think that I see two main tendencies. The first is that when everybody works from home, then you see men and women are in the same situation, and there is probably a more participation of men in the household, of taking care of kids, making food for them, things like that. The other tendency that I see is kind of opposite. And in countries where there has been massive job loss, has actually impacted certain social groups more than others. Like women seem to have lost more of their jobs in the United States than in America, which is probably rather an opposite trend, isn't it?
Fair enough. Anyone else would like to comment? Monika?
I think what is also important that very often we focus only on white collars, and we are speaking now these days a lot about home office, homeschooling, how difficult it is for us to stay home with our families, etc. But on the opposite side, we have blue collars employees. Here I'm speaking about, let's say, factories, industry, services business as Sodexo provide. These people, they need to go to work on daily basis. They need to commute. They work in groups. So they are in much more difficult situation than we are, let's say, working from home. So here, as Monika said at the beginning, there is another group of people we should focus thinking about D&I. And I mean D&I not only in terms of diversity, but especially in terms of inclusiveness of this group of people.
Privilege is not visible to those who have it, right? So exactly those that are benefiting from accessibility to technology, from vehicles or being mobile in the current world are much more privileged than those that are not. So definitely it's not, as Philippe mentioned, it's not impacting equally all the social groups.
And why should we believe that we will never return to the old times? You surely remember the beginning of the pandemic, where there were lots and lots of press articles implying that once employees from corporate environments started working from home and didn't have to travel as much, the commuting part was removed, that the efficiency actually grew, didn't go down. Well, many of us would surely agree that this may have been the outcome of the fact that it was a time of uncertainty. People must have been concern about the probability of losing a job. Therefore, productivity may have risen as an outcome of this fear. So that's the question. Will we never return to the old times?
Well, I think that's quite fundamental in how innovations work. You see, innovations, and once you have invented something, it can't be uninvented. To uninvent something isn't even a word, because that doesn't happen. Once we know how the atomic bomb works, it will be part of human knowledge forever. And so now we
But
have
Philippe,
technology that allows us to work from home, and that will continue because it makes sense for the employee and for the employer.
But Philippe, quite frankly, it's not that we woke up in the middle of March 2020 and discovered these technologies. These technologies were there for quite some time already. In fact, a lot of companies delayed their home office solutions because there was no incentive to implement them. So it's not that technology changed it.
Honestly, because we didn't trust people. We were thinking, well, the middle management was probably very conservative there. And we were thinking, if we allow people to work from home, they will just be drinking coffee and taking care of their kids, and they won't be focusing, the work won't be done. And now what we have seen with the pandemic, and in banks, for example, came March, there was a huge surge in transactions. We had much more transactions to push through, things to control, work to be done, and we did it. And on top of that, people were working from home. So we realized, oh, well, yeah, we can't trust people.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's almost... Yes, Monika.
Sorry, Łukasz. So
right.
what I would like to say is that, I mean, we were obliged to turn to the home office, let's say, space. There was not other option for us still to provide our business, let's say, to deliver what we do on daily basis, to be in touch with our employees. So it was the situation who made us, let's say, doing in this way.
Even
there
for
is
the
no
corporate
denying. Wonderful.
I was going
For a while there, I don't think, no matter how much all of us talk at the same time, we will never be able to compete with politicians, I suppose. So no worries there. But it's really hard to disagree that things changed in March, more or less starting from March, when companies started shifting to home office. But let's try and get a little deeper into the whys. How likely is it really that we will not come back to the original solutions?
First of all, the mentality of people have changed, right? As Philippe and Monika mentioned, people need to trust one another. Many organizations who never worked remotely started to do so, like little organizations, like little companies, or even non-governmental organizations, who in theory have, worse access to technology. People were forced to do it, and the reality forced us to accommodate new solutions, adapt better. The relations have changed. We are working in remote teams that are lacking sometimes, understanding. We can see lots of hidden bias. We need to make sure that we will be addressing all of these new, or rather, uncovered tendencies of human beings.
Monika, what you're all saying is fascinating in that it sounds like it's not really the technology, despite of what Philippe said, but it's more about psychology and trust, the soft dimension. So is it fair to say that in some ways everyone feels a little more equal today, now that we are reaching to one another's homes, communicating on a daily basis?
I'm fully convinced that this is true. We suddenly discovered that all of us are not safe from anxiety and stress. We all have mental health that used to be some kind of a marginalized topic and rather taken into account for some certain groups of people. Suddenly mental health started to consider all of us. We started to feel insecure. We started to build relations remotely because many of us are very lonely at homes. Not all of us as people have got families or friends living with us on a daily basis. So those isolated need to cope on their own. they need to find other ways how to function in the society.
For the last 5 minutes, Monika. Yes, Monika, say it.
So one more element, I think that companies started to feel responsible for mental health of their employees, which very often was not the case in the past. Mental health was a kind of, let's say, the part of our private life. And now it becomes really a huge problem for some companies where employees feel really alone, staying at home, or they feel this anxiety from different reasons.
You're absolutely right. At first, companies started to develop fitness and physical health solutions for employees. Then I suppose they became more diverse about food options. Then the whole fashion for nurseries and different outdoor facilities started. And now we're at a stage where the growth of this holistic approach is bringing us closer to mental health issues. Philippe, I've been provoking you a little for a while there to stray from the exclusively technological and innovation part when trying to explain why we will not come back to that. Is there anything you would like to add to that perspective?
Well, it of course depends for who we are talking or for what exactly we're talking about. If it's about construction work, well, we don't have the technology yet to do that from a distance. If it's like going to a bar and have a beer, I hope we will never have technology to do that from a distance. So, see, there are different things, but office work generally can be done from home, but still there is value in meeting each other. That is how we have been building trust for eons. So that is what we will continue to have to do. So the model that I'm dreaming about now is that we will meet in the office for 2 days every 10 days. And that allows people to live hundreds of kilometers from the place where they work officially. That has a lot more flexibility, helps people with young children, and things can be done in very different ways. But that is indeed for that group of jobs where it is possible. And to your point of making things more equal, maybe men and women working in the same household and both working from home, yes, it forces you to be more equal, but still you have large flexibility there. But also different ranks in society. Well, while it looks like you're equal, you can look into each other's kitchen like that. You would never have done that with your boss before, and it feels like it makes you more equal, but in the end it's not. Just one signature of your boss and you're gone. That is still the case.
In the sense that your boss will inevitably have a better looking kitchen?
Yes, or at least a green screen after you, isn't it?
Exactly. Now we're getting closer to the technology part of it. And what Philippe is saying is that some kind of middle ground needs still to be found, whether it's 2 days out of 10, so that we can avoid the jams, the commuting, the stress linked to it. And surely somewhere on the way there is just the right type of compromise. But imagine a very typical situation where 2 parents are working from home. First of all, imagine what kind of home is needed to isolate yourself for focused work, the time needed, and you have children to look after. And after a full day, a full week, a full month of working from home, and not even having the physical exercise involved in actually commuting, dressing up properly, are there any risks to that scenario?
Par for your equality.
Yes.
Again, see, it works different for people that have different richness in this world. If you have a big house with each kid a private room, then that works perfectly fine. But if you don't even have an office, one person works from the bedroom, the other from the kitchen, well, that is not, and if you have 2 more kids there, that's a different world, of course. It's not equal.
Philippe, it sounds to me like you're a great fan of Einstein's theory of relativity. Yeah, but on a more serious note, can we come back to how well equipped employees are? And is it really part of employers' responsibilities? Because, well, not all of us have just the right type of equipment to convey, to actually work effectively. Because we are talking about equality, everyone becoming a little more equal, but not all of us are equipped and trained to actually have the same type of quality communication when it comes to online and all those webinars and conferences that employees will surely need to participate in.
Yes, but
And
that's the same
again,
discussion that we were having 20 years ago, people using computers, isn't it? Sorry, I'm talking too much, somebody else.
So let me simplify. Let me simplify. Should employers provide employees with at least the bare minimum of quality equipment for video conferencing and all?
Yes, well,
Yes,
employees
for
that
sure.
can
It's
work
our
from home need a
obligation.
computer, and companies
Our
tend to give
obligation.
that.
Wonderful.
So from my perspective, of course, it's our obligation as employers, let's say, to provide our people with everything they need. Because as you said, Łukasz, that, for example, first we were more focused on fitness, let's say, providing food, etc. We are now is the mental health we take care. So it's the same a little bit with the equipment. So first is all this personal protection equipment. We know it's obligatory, let's say, for us to provide our people. But now it's the kind of level to zero from an employer perspective. So here we are speaking about all IT equipment, and equipment is not enough because then it's the question of training, onboarding. During pandemic time, since March, we are still hiring new people in our organization. Very often during recruitment process, they are not in touch, or they were never been, let's say, in our headquarters, in our office. So the only touch we have is them is this online contact. So how to onboard them, how to welcome them in the organization. I think that is really a crucial point for us as employer, and the responsibility of the learning and development department and of hiring managers changed completely during this time. So it's not only about equipment, but it's about everything that goes with equipment.
Having said
large
that, Monika,
organizations. Łukasz, if I may,
could I ask you
add
just,
additional.
can you give me an example of any measures already undertaken over the past 7 months by any of your companies to equip your employees, whether it's hardware or on the soft side, skills and training?
We need to remember that large organizations had been prepared already for such situations a long time ago, because we do have business continuity plans in place, and we need to be sure that at any point of time our business can be continued. So in terms of large organizations, I think the technology like computers, laptops, bandwidth, and tested or regularly testing the remote access, was done in the past. The main challenge is with the little organizations that do not have enough computers, or even such a social case of foster families where there are many kids, 1 or 2 computers only. Lots of organizations had a great role to play to equip these places and enable even students for remote schooling. We need to remember also that technology is also giving us great opportunity and make the access to those who had never been able to be dreaming about work somewhere there in the US, for example, or providing, our services, competences, and investing our skills overseas, but also, even for those that are not being able to commute on a daily basis to the office, so people with disabilities. So, this technology gives us the access to those groups, and we should really leverage from these opportunities. And many companies see that already. Many have gone through that pathway. But as Monika mentioned, I think equally important is to make sure that people will be able to use the technology not only as employees but also as managers of these people. That they will be able to, not only deliver the work, but also they will be able to be empathic leaders who will understand the people, and in the best possible way they will be able to support them the way they need it.
Well, on the positive side, to look at I don't think any of us needs any additional persuading that technology is helping a lot. It's enough to go back 20 years and think about the times where we could only grab a simple mobile phone and play Snake when we had time. And now the technology makes it very, very different for us. But let me ask you about another aspect of this entire dimension. We started with what I said might be a bit on the wishful thinking side, but has anything changed? Because if you look across the corporate landscape in Krakow, for instance, which is a very diverse landscape in terms of companies represented, D&I efforts were largely focused or promoted, propagated in the form of networks and meetings. And now that all of us are in home office, it's no longer so easy, is it? So have the attitudes changed for the better, really?
Yes, well, D&I never has been only about networking. I think, at least for me, it never has been. It's probably where you have to start to get some traction. But once you have traction, there is so much more that you have to do. And many things already exist or are being done already, but you just have to do them slightly different or more, or just emphasize them. For example, if you want have a more reasonable representation of ladies in higher ranking roles, you see that doesn't happen just by having targets. Targets usually backfire. What you have to do is to see, okay, why aren't I have this group of people and see have so much competent ladies and they just don't apply for that specific role. And then you go to them and you find out, well, they say, look, here were 10 things that you had to be able to do for that role. I only tick 7 of the 10 boxes, I won't apply. And then you have all these CVs of men on your desk and they tick maybe 2 boxes. They didn't even read the boxes. You see, there's just a different approach, a different attitude towards risk. And how do you solve that? Well, that you solve by coaching, by mentoring. You see, those things already existed, but now you see what you have to do specific for specific groups. And those things, probably there is much more value in such things and such a kind of work. And what you see happening, at least in HSBC and at least in HSBC Krakow, is that diversity and inclusion is becoming a bigger club, yes, but it is almost being involved with many other things. We go to managers and say, well, maybe you should do these things differently. We go to HR and say, well, you did this thing great. Let us make promotion about it. And so many other things. We are both involved in everything that's going on. The trick is to make the move from a separate club of networking towards, let's say, a bottom line for everybody else in the organization without, let's say, making people too nervous.
At the beginning of
Absolutely.
the pandemic, we all needed some kind of adaptation, and our employee resource groups also needed. So currently we can observe, at least in State Street in various locations, we see that people are engaged more. They want to contribute, they want to make a change, they want to engage and have an impact on the society, have an impact on shift of the mindsets in the organization. So people are coming back, or they have already adjusted themselves and they are happy to contribute more, especially that they are missing these social opportunities to interact with others, and we all need that. So definitely through participating even in webinars, in interactive art galleries or any other type of activities that we do together, they have a feeling of belonging, which is extremely important from the perspective of IND, because once we feel that we are part of the bigger society, this solidarity gives us power, this feeling of that we are not alone in the crisis, that there are people who are willing to give us a hand in case of needed, even if it was just a phone call conversation. We know that sometimes it can save someone's life. So this is extremely important, that people are reactivating themselves and they want to contribute and make other lives better as well.
There are many ways to... Yeah, yes, Monika.
So I think that this solidarity aspect is something very, very important these days. It's something we didn't observe so much in the past. So solidarity among employees, among managers and blue collars. I know that I'm coming back again to this blue collars population, but from my perspective, it's extremely important. And for example, it was a great initiative among our managers in Sodexo. They decided, the majority of them, to contribute with their yearly bonus to create a fund and to support their colleagues working on the site level, earning, of course, lower salaries, being in much more difficult situation. So, I mean, I was really amazed by this action and by the number of people decided to contribute in this fund. So this solidarity aspect is something I hope will stay with us for longer.
Thank you, Monika. That's a very important observation. Do we have examples of similar trends in other contexts? Philippe, can you think of an initiative that you could call solidarity or put under the solidarity heading in the HSBC experience?
And such things like Monika was mentioning, they happen more and more. And I think that is a positive impact of the pandemic. It has definitely created a higher level of consciousness or solidarity. For example, the first thing that we did in HSBC Krakow is we have a small budget for organizing social meetings or team working events and things like that. They're very valuable, but we said, okay, well, this year, already early on in April, we decided to not use that budget for ourselves, but say, look, instead, we will give it to the hospitals in Krakow. They will need it more than we do. Things like that happened over and over again. Within budgets that we had for things that could be missed, we decided to use for other purposes. Another big campaign was to help employees that are on lower salaries. For example, you see that working from home comes at an extra cost because you need to heat your place, you need the electricity, you have to use your own coffee, and you have to have a quality internet connection. HSBC gives 100 zloty per month for that internet connection, but still, if you suddenly have to work from home and having the kids home, it comes at an extra cost. And depending on your family situation, that might create problems. So we decided solidarily to do something about that. Such things definitely happen.
And we do still have... Yes, Monika.
Go on, Łukasz.
We only have 3 minutes left. Yeah, finish.
I was just going to say that except from our focus on, our colleagues and our employees in the organization, it's absolutely important that we also have a contribution into wider society externally. That's why I mentioned previously our, engagement in voluntary work and also support for our partners. State Street is also present as a foundation in the world and making a huge impact to organizations supporting COVID and other topics. In Poland, we passed 3,000 computers for the foster families and different organizations supporting children, as I mentioned previously. So it's absolutely important that large organizations having better budgets and really stable situation will be making a change also wider and contributing to the societies.
Thank you, Monika. We have less than 2 minutes left, and I have 2 questions left for you. One is a yes or no question, and it goes like this. Is it true that in the past you actually had to look for a D&I champion in your company, and now they volunteer? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Not really. The expectations also have changed. We expect a lot more from those people, so we look harder.
Exactly. Yes. And my last question would be, since we really haven't settled the answer to the theme question from our panel, which is, will we never return to the old days? But there are some ideas that it may be somewhere in the middle, like 2 days out of 10 in the office. So imagine it's 2022. What's this percentage going to be? How are we going to work in big corporates?
I think 50-50 at least.
50-50.
At least.
I'm sure Philippe will say something else.
No, I think that a normal day you might see like 40% of people in the office on average in the type of service centers that we have. Yes.
Here I need to agree.
Thank you so
50-50,
much.
I think.
50-50. So we have like 2 years to wait, less in fact. Thank you very much for joining us for the second day of D&I Changemakers 2020, and stay with us. It's been our first opening panel with Monika Bentkowska, Jankowska-Rangelov, and Philippe de Brouwer. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks for the interesting discussion. Bye.
Thank you.